Maybe you've heard of the legend of the chessboard. The way this story goes is that the game of chess was invented by a man in India, and the ruler of India at that time loved the game, and he wanted to reward this man who had invented this game that he loved. So he gave him a choice. He said, I'll either give you a big bag of rice every day from now till the day you die, or I'll give you a chessboard and we'll put 1 grain on the first square, 2 grains on the second square, 4 grains on the third square, and so on until we've filled the board. Which would you rather have? To his surprise, the man chose the second option. Unfortunately, the ruler was unable to come through with his promised reward. You see, if you do that, multiplying out the grains of rice on the squares of a chessboard, you will end up with enough rice to cover the entire subcontinent of India 16 meters deep in rice. It's more rice than has been produced around the entire world in all of history. That's the power of multiplication. We get excited about big numbers, and so we seek to achieve those numbers by adding big numbers. So we love big stadium events where thousands of people come to Christ. We love big broadcast events where tens of thousands of people come to Christ. This isn't how Jesus tended to operate. Jesus tended to operate by focusing the majority of his efforts on a small number of people. He did some ministry with the multitudes, but in a sense, this was almost like sifting events where he's trying to filter and find people to invest more in. He spent a little more time with a group of about 500, and still more with a group of 70 or 72. Still more time with the 12. That's where he invested the most time. And then even more with the 3, Peter, James, and John. So he was investing deeply in a few who were faithful. And in large movements that we see, even to this day, that's the pattern. If you go and you look at movements, at least ones that sustain themselves, it's a result of someone investing deeply in a few faithful people who will then invest in a few others deeply. So it's a matter of finding these faithful people, and that's another reason why keeping these 3 elements of knowledge, obedience, and sharing in balance is important. Because if we have that kind of dual accountability regularly in place, we can locate those faithful people that are worth investing deeply in. Jesus was a terrible marketer. He was really bad. I mean, think about some of the things he said. Like, the first one that pops into my mind is when he said, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you can have no part in me. And it says all of those people who had been following him left, leaving just the 12. And then he says, how about you? Are you going to leave too? And you just want to say, Jesus, be quiet. They might leave, you know? Don't say things like that. Don't you understand? You're going to alienate people. They won't understand. But he does it anyway. And another time when he does it is in Luke chapter 14. Jesus has been going around teaching, performing miracles, healing people, and so he's got this huge crowd following him. And you think, that's great. So in verse 25 there, it says, now great multitudes were following along with him. So that looks promising. And then it says, Jesus turned and said to them, if anyone comes after me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. For what man, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Or else, when he has begun to build and is not able to finish, all who observe it will begin to ridicule him, saying, this man began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king, when he sets out to do battle with another king, does not first sit down and take counsel, if he is able with 10,000 men to encounter the one coming against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation to ask terms of peace. So, therefore, no one of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. Therefore, salt is good, but if even salt loses its flavor, with what will it be seasoned? It is useless either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. What was Jesus thinking? I mean, this is crazy. He's got all of these people following him, and then he turns and he basically says to them, look, if you come after me, I have to be far more important to you than every relationship in your life. Every one of them, by far. I have to be more important to you than your life itself. You need to be ready to die for me every day. And think about it, because it's a huge cost. In fact, everything you have belongs to me. You're forfeiting all your possessions if you follow me. It's all mine. And you know what? If you don't follow me like that, you are worthless as a follower. You're not even worth throwing onto the manure pile. You need to just be completely thrown away because you are not worth a thing. That kind of following is worthless. Listen to me. Are you paying attention? Wow. He needs some marketing lessons. The only thing that I can imagine that could explain why he did that and what he was doing was he was testing to see why people were following him. Were they following him for entertainment, for healing, for, profit, for some other selfish reason? Or were they following him because they recognized who he was? He is the King of all creation. He is the ruler of everything. He is the infinite, wise, perfect, eternal King. And that's why they're following him. Because that is the only way those demands make any sense. Only if they recognized who he was. And if they did recognize that, then of course, those demands make perfect sense. That's completely reasonable and appropriate. And I believe that's what he was doing. So often, I think we get so interested in the big numbers that then we want to soften the message. We want to make it more attractive. We want to make it about the person we're speaking to rather than about God and who he is. And I think that's a mistake. We're interested in adding large numbers rather than investing in a few who will be faithful to multiply. And I think this is something that we need to get over because it is all about him. Our conception of who God is and our appropriate response to that is the most important thing about us. it determines everything in our life. It determines our values, our priorities, what we know is real, true, beautiful, valuable. It determines our actions and our attitudes. Everything is determined by our view of who God is and an appropriate response to that. So if we're sharing the gospel, the reason it's good news is because it's about Him and the fact that we can know Him. It's not about, oh, your life will be easier or, something else. It's not about us. It's about Him. And if we will share the good news of the kingdom, the good news of the King with that in mind, it changes everything. And it helps make sure that we place the focus on Him and place the emphasis of our labors for the kingdom on multiplication, not addition. We don't just want everyone to come for any and every reason. We want everyone to come who recognizes who He is. So the most important task is we make that clear. We make clear who He is.